all right, I'm going to eat bullshit all week, but on Saturday I'm going to take my Ozempic and be back to maintaining my normal weight. Like, it's not going to work like that. And if you think so, there is going to be some long-term side effects or long-term consequences for that decision.
Welcome to Your One Podcast, where future leaders take on the complexities of today.
Fellow listeners, and welcome back to Your One Podcast, where we dive into business and political topics with a youthful lens, and we hope this encourages you to join the conversation and come to your own conclusions. Because when people stop talking is when people stop understanding and bad decisions are made. But first, let's understand who's joining me today, and is none other than the insightful trio Micah McNeil, Felipe Segura, and Zachary Crilly. So before we get into what we will be discussing today, we want to bring it back to an earlier topic that we have been talking about, which is the popularity of third-party candidates. And Micah has taken matters into his own hands and joined the RFK Jr. campaign in New York. So how's that been going, Micah?
Well, first of all, what an intro. What an intro, actually. But yes, I've volunteered to get petition signed to get RFK Jr. On the presidential ticket in New York. And this is my second time. The first time we were walking around and campaigning in downtown. And this time we were in like Inwood or like Fort Greene, which is at like the tip of Manhattan. Never been up there. It took me an hour to get up there. But it was absolutely beautiful. If any of our listeners in New York, I got, I think 25 signatures, which was great. It was way more than I got the last time. I'm in sales, so it's kind of like sort of giving my pitching sale to people, and I love it. I'm not getting paid for it. It's something I really want to do. And I've enjoyed both times doing it. So yeah, there he is right there. So
I love it. I mean, that's world-class journalism right there. Boots on the ground.
Skin in the game. Skin in the game.
But this is a topic. Will go ahead.
Yeah. How much for our listeners do you think working in sales, is it similar, like as working in sales as it is to door knocking, getting signatures? You think there's any similarity?
It's not. It's literally the same thing. I mean, it's literally like, it's informal, off the cusp. You're trying to convince someone to do something for you, and yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I go up to, I maybe went up to 100 people and got 25 signatures, right? So it's a lot of people telling you to fuck off. So dealing with that is probably the same thing, both in sales and then both in volunteering, at least in my use case.
Awesome.
Yeah. So this will be a topic we'll come back to as we get closer and closer to the election. But today we will go into the pharmaceutical world, and specifically the meteoric rise of Ozempic, which is a fat loss drug that's caught fire over the past couple of years. And we'll be exploring everything from its staggering sales figures, ethical debates it's sparking, and how marketing has changed in this industry forever. So let's kick things off with Ozempic. So where did it start? Interestingly enough, in the 1980s, a biochemist by the name of John Pisano found that a hormone-like molecule in lizard venom helped regulate insulin and saw weight loss in mice. So what did they do from then to now is basically create a synthetic version of this hormone that's found in lizard venom, and they put it into a drug now called Ozempic. So it's just insane how some of these drugs are created. But fast forward to today, Ozempic is approved in 2017, now has 20 million people using it. And this just shows how easy it is to get. But also, let's take a look at the stock price of the company that's actually selling it. So right here, we can see it's just completely taken off. And right at around 2019, you can see it was approved, and there's a new drug, and it's just 10x'd at least. But that's the company selling it. The price per month to users are around $1,000 per month, And based on the research I've seen, this drug can be made for about $10 per month. And while people are getting cured more or less of their obesity with this drug, I can't help but think of this as like, what have we come to? Is this just a Band-Aid solution to America of having a terrible food problem and the quality of our food is not good? And should we have people being prescribed a drug over just making better decisions? So what are your thoughts here?
Well, I'd like to hone in a bit more on the business use case and put the ethical and societal implications on pause for a second. As you showed, the stock was very much up and to the right, up 49,000% since its inception and its IPO. That's pretty incredible. Novo Nordisk is a Danish company. That's who makes Ozempic. They are the 13th most valuable company by market cap on the stock exchange, all stock exchanges in the world. They are one tier below Tesla and one tier above Visa. So this company has quickly grown to be one that you and I might not have heard of, but that has a very large business presence, and it's mostly around this drug Ozempic. So whether we've heard about it or not, this drug is here and it's here to stay, and the business impacts are absolutely massive.
Michael, what's your take on the rise of this thing?
Yeah. Zach almost took the words out of my mouth. But it's quite insane that they've been able in relatively a short time period just to amass this flow. I'm going to be totally honest. It wasn't until like a month and a half ago that I even knew what Ozempic was or what this company were doing. And to see where their growth is today, as you alluded to, 20 million subscriptions already. If you ask people who are relatively unhealthy or do have diabetes, okay, if you're prescribed this, you're going to alleviate your diabetes type 2. And 2, as another effect, you're also going to lose weight. I think most people are going to be like, yes, that is a good thing. All right. So if you have that on your side, where this company can grow, it's almost like an Nvidia thing where it's like they're first to market on this. They have a competitive advantage over everyone else in the space. And what they're doing is something that society wants, right? And that is A++, A++, A++ for any business. Giving something people want but don't know how to get yet, and doing that at scale. And they seem to be doing that all at the right cylinders, and the timing and the luck is working all in their favor. So from a business standpoint, that's my off the cusp take.
Yeah, well said, Micah. Obesity is a huge issue right now in the industrialized world. This is probably the first time in humanity where it's not starvation is a problem, it's obesity, people having too many calories in their system. So this seems to be one of the first times we've medicinally have a solution to that through modern science, which is something to be applauded on.
Right.
I guess the question is, and this happens with a lot of drugs, is what are the side effects 5-10 years down the line? And so that's probably the only thing that could prevent this company from growing even more than it already is. So yeah, I'm just very curious, and I think, Gavin, you've been alluding to it, about whether this is ethical for example, obese children to take as a hypothetical scenario, as opposed to getting into the gym and working out. Are there side effects on that side? I've heard takes that it takes away from muscle, not only fat. So there it is a mixed bag, and I don't know if this is that magic pill that solves all your problems, right? So yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see it unfold, but before we get into the, I guess, ethical conversation, let's zoom out a bit and look at the history of the pharma industry. So, for example, Humira, which is used to treat arthritis and autoimmune conditions, reached sales of $15 billion in 2023. Drugs like Lipitor, which was used to lower cholesterol, had its peak in 2006, selling $12.9 billion before its patent expired. And with these successes, there are the failures. which a drug like Vioxx, which was a anti-inflammatory medication and withdrawn from the market due to an increased risk of heart attack and stroke. And then the obvious one, the Sackler family so graciously introduced, was OxyContin, which had a combined sales of $35 billion revenue to date, and that drove the opioid epidemic in America. One stat I found interesting is that for every $3 that these companies bring in, $1 is spent on dealing with the consequences of their side effects and litigation and other patient costs. But I guess let's look back at where this began. And in 1980, the FDA relaxed regulations on direct-to-consumer marketing campaigns. And in 2024, pharma companies are set to spend $21 billion in digital ads this year. And influencer marketing is a big piece of that pie. So this is a huge change that is not only makes marketing these drugs more approachable for the consumer, since you're watching your favorite influencer push a drug that you probably have these symptoms for, and then that leads to a slippery slope for the future of marketing in pharma. So where do you guys think the line is? Like, should this be allowed? Where should this stop? Is this going to happen with Ozempic? What do you guys think?
It was funny you mentioned that like $1 goes to like whatever backstopping happens in the industry or whatever lawsuits ends up happening. I would assume that the other dollar goes to advertisement, and then the other dollar is whatever money that they have. But I think you bring up a really the latter points, speaking about sort of the marketing and the influence of individuals, using their name and likeness to, push a product, a pharmaceutical product. When we were reviewing this and we were looking at the Pew research of just respondents, 32% said that they did take a drug because of someone. So 1 in 3 people that end up taking a drug, in effect, are being influenced by a marketer of some kind, some individual. What does that mean? Well, humans are easily persuaded. We're mimetic. We follow what other people do. And if we see someone that we really like using the same thing as us, we're probably going to end up doing it without maybe doing all the research that we need to. So what that means is interesting. I mean, that leaves the door open for maybe taking a drug that might not be beneficial for you. And we saw that with the opioid crisis. So,
Zach, what do you think?
This opens up the question of, do you want to live in a society where you are inundated constantly with advertisements for prescription drugs? As you said, Evan, these companies spend billions of dollars a year advertising prescription drugs to us. I think that it's worth noting that the United States and New Zealand are the only 2 developed countries that allow for the direct-to-consumer prescription, or for the direct-to-consumer advertisement of prescription drugs. My answer is no. I do not want to be living in a society where I turn on the TV and all that I see is advertisements for drugs that don't apply to me and that aren't adding to the quality of my life.
Gavin, when you brought up influencers taking drugs on TV, or well, not taking drugs, taking pharmaceutical FDA approved drugs, I just thought of Travis Kelce and Pfizer, but that's side note. No, I 100% agree with you, Zach. I think
me too.
We don't want to be a society that, this is almost like a Black Mirror episode where they're just advertising different drugs for people to take to solve all of their problems, right? And I don't think it's a coincidence that the United States is one of the most unhealthy societies in the world, / one of the richest, and we're one of the few countries that allows you to advertise pharmaceuticals in the market, right? Because we think that, if we just take this drug, we can solve all of our problems, when a lot of that work, it's hard work to be healthy naturally, but I think that's the best remedy in a lot of cases to preventing diseases later down the road and keeping healthcare costs from exploding.
Yeah, I have an interesting hypothetical for you. Basically, if you had a drug that can do what Ozempic does, or you had the option of a grocery store that only sells whole foods, vegetables, things that are known to be good for you, and a treadmill, you can work out, that decision for most Americans is usually just going to be that drug. So what does it take for that business to be successful, of a grocery store with no processed foods, no added bullshit to the market? Because I've been thinking, like, that would be a great business, like, proposition for people that are into healthy eating and healthy lifestyle, is why not just make a grocery store that takes away all the processed bullshit and only sells whole foods? Like, yeah, Whole Foods exists, but they're not selling Whole Foods. Like, yeah, they have great marketing and they have great products that go in there, quote unquote premium, but there's really no solution for somebody to go to get things that are vetted, that are not processed, that are good for you. So
So,
where can we kind of go to get that solution?
two things. Two things. One, with your hypothetical. No, I actually think most people would actually choose the latter with healthy foods, healthy options. That's a whole nother thing about like just access and ability. Second, the reason why there isn't something like that is because one, they would have negative margins. They would make no money. The cost of having the best products and the healthiest things would just be the cost to bear would just be way too much. To answer your question, I mean, put simply, right? Like, it's way easier to produce genetically modified food and replicate that than have, all healthy chickens and, chicken bones that are this small. So I mean, yeah. I mean,
But if that's the cost of a healthy lifestyle, I'm willing to pay that.
Yeah, I actually have a question here.
people aren't.
And Zach, this might go for you as kind of a libertarian or more free market capitalist, a little bit more to kind of the principle. Do you think then this seems like something really important? Is this something that might make sense for the US government to subsidize having healthy food available to all of its citizens?
Well, if we look at the U.S. government subsidizing food, that takes place today, and the U.S. government subsidizes in mass a lot of food that isn't good for us. Soy, corn. These lobbies have very strong presence in Washington, and they've been subsidized for years now. And there's a direct correlation between the subsidies of these products and the increase in high fructose corn syrup and other filler ingredients in mass market foods. So my argument there would be, in a perfect world, no, we allow the customers to vote with their dollars and spend without government intervention. But we already have that, and it's having a negative impact. So I think there is a real argument to be made to, first of all, stopping the government subsidization of these negative ingredients, and then having positive ingredients be reinforced.
I just think that we've come to this point where in America, I don't know the percentage, but a high percentage is obese and has chronic diseases.
It's like
So
one.
how is it?
Like
What is it?
1 in 3. 1 in 3
Chronic disease or obese?
obese.
That is insane. But how have we not opened our eyes to that fact yet and had solutions that establish some kind of place they can go to solve this?
I mean, optionality, marketing. I mean, like, people shouldn't eat cereal, but I mean, like, people don't know that. I mean, you see Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops look good, but they're like terrible for you. Like, I mean, it goes to the point about what you guys said about like, having access. I mean, once the floodgates were open in the 1980s and we allowed the lobbying and the commerce groups to come in, you could basically sell whatever you wanted to. I mean, we have the worst dietary system in the world. There's quite literally foods that are banned in the or that are banned literally almost everywhere else in the world but the United States. So I mean, what you let the free markets, and the free markets are obviously a good thing and something I stand behind. But when you have the FDA and the government and big food all working sort of in cahoots with each other, you get the problems that we do now. Where a staggering stat like 1 in 3 sounds insane, which it is.
Yeah, I actually think that we're touching upon such a big issue, and Micah, like just as you highlighted, this is a this is a 40-year, 50-year ongoing development of heavy lobbying and whatnot. I think this kind of ties into the rise of third-party candidates and alternative points of view, because
Yeah.
we can't even say between us, oh, what party stands for the food lobby? It's probably both. It's both parties. It's not even a topic of conversation, and it's something that affects the healthcare system, the cost of healthcare, the well-being of citizens, where we've just essentially done what the opioid crisis did to like essentially pain, now to the obesity crisis, or to our issues around obesity. So this is just another point that there needs to be a change, and there's no, both sides aren't talking about it.
One point of agreement and one point of disagreement. I'm in complete agreement with you that I feel we have gone too far in this country in supporting the quality of corporations over the quality of life of individuals. And we see that repeatedly through food, through opioids, through banking systems,
And
a variety of legislative decisions have been made that side with corporations over siding with individuals. Now, with that being said, I have a firm belief that the buck has to stop with the individual, because I think that we can spend the rest of our lives pointing to reasons why we're fat, why we're sick, why we're not wealthy, why we have things that are going wrong in our life, but that will lead us nowhere other than deeper into despair and misery. And this isn't a popular opinion, but I think that every person will be better served understanding that they can take their life into their own hands and stop complaining and blaming the government, blaming their neighbor, blaming the institutions, and say, you know what, those might have an effect, but it's me who's going to get myself out of this hole, and it's me that I have to depend on to build that ladder and reach the next level.
I think why I think that's so hard is for a couple reasons, but one of them is the fact that like America, one stat that Felipe showed before we got on is that the life expectancy for cancer patients in the US is longer than really anywhere else. And life expectancy in the US is actually it's not lower than a lot of places. I think we're in the top 15, top 20. But what happens when you look at health expectancy of a person? Like, how long are they going to be healthy and living their lives fully? That is, I'd venture to guess, much, much lower in the US due to 1 in 3 having a chronic disease they deal with every single day. So I do think that it's like out of reach for them. They're like, oh yeah, this bad decision won't impact me today, but those little bad decisions will impact them in a huge way in the future. How do we get that negative feedback loop to be quicker than it is, which is almost a impossible thing to do because that's just how the body works. But if there's like a gamified system in some way to give people something when they make a good decision, like this could be an app or something where it's like, oh, I'll take you to the grocery store and I'll scan the foods that I get and you get money because of that. And it'll be funded through advertisements or something like that. I'm just trying to think about a logical solution that people can have to make better decisions.
I mean, it was a free market healthcare system. If you got more diseases because of poor life decisions, then your healthcare costs went up. So there was an incentive to be fit. Then again, it's not fully fair. Obviously, the devil's in the details. There's people with pre-existing conditions and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know, Zach. I think that there's also a part of this where if the food pyramid is completely biased and wrong, then then you have a distortion of information for everyday people being like, oh, I'm living a healthy life because I'm following the food pyramid, which is, I mean, there are theories that it was kind of influenced by certain companies to promote certain products or whatnot. But if you think that eating cereal in the morning is the healthiest thing you can possibly do, I mean, you are playing a little bit in an unlevel playing field. But point taken, if you do exercise every day enough, you probably won't be obese, I suppose. But that is an issue.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there are no broken systems in our country. In fact, I think that it's patriotic to point those broken systems out, and not only to point them out, but to take steps to try to make them better, like Micah's doing and volunteering in a campaign that he believes in. But with that being said, when I look at my own life, I find it disempowering to give the reason for why I'm not satisfied with where I am, whether it's in health and wellness, whether it's in other domains of my life, because of some concept of a greater system that's keeping me down, rather than saying, you know what, maybe the food pyramid that I was taught is not correct. Maybe there are things that are against me excelling to the fullest of my abilities, but the only person that I can depend on to fix that and to save me is myself.
100% agree. I mean, 100% agree. I mean, I will say there's obviously nuance, and like at least in this topic, there's obviously more nuance to it. But just like from first principle, 100% agree. At least that's the way I try to live my life. Like, it's not someone else's fault that my life's this way, and I'm never gonna blame someone else for that. So I agree with that. Just to literally, 100%.
I mean, this ties to Micah, what you said. You want this year to be the end of victim mentality. So,
Exactly, bro. It doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help anyone. It's not the government's fault. It's not, your father-in-law's fault. It's not. It's you, dude. If you want to be happy, go make yourself happy.
yeah, and I think that the full stop issue that I think we all feel from Ozempic is that it's not that if you're 50 years old and you're obese, you shouldn't take Ozempic to help you get back to a normal weight. I think the issue is that we kind of feel like a bunch of people are going to be taking Ozempic and using it as a cheat way out, and it's not going to be solving the real problem, which is kind of a victim mentality kind of culture.
Right.
And so I think that's the bigger issue that has to be solved, right?
Yeah.
And obesity and people being unhappy with their physical appearance has been an issue since the dawn of man. I had a brunch today with my grandma who turned 95 years old, and she was talking about how all of the advertisements that she sees on TV are for diet pills or weight loss diets of some sort. So I think that the question is it fruitful to compare Ozempic to things like SSRIs, which are depression drugs? And that was another largely successful pharmaceutical that revolutionized the pharmacological treatment of depression. And now we see Ozempic, which revolutionizes the pharmacological treatment of obesity and of diabetes. And the question is, what will the effects of these quote unquote silver bullet solutions for lifestyle related conditions be?
Yeah.
When it doesn't become eat healthy and exercise or get sunlight and surround yourself with a strong community. It becomes take a pill, take a shot. That's your solution. There are going to be side effects and there are going to be consequences.
That's a great point, Zach. All right, we can that's a beautiful point. Everyone's looking for the short-term hack, right? To getting rich, to getting healthy, to finding a girlfriend. All of the, dude, everything. If you want to change your life, it's going to take the long term. I'm not trying to get philosophical here, but like, that's an amazing point, right? There are no get rich quick schemes or get healthy quick schemes. Like, don't use this as a substitute to that. All right, I'm gonna eat bullshit all week, but on Saturday I'm gonna take my Ozempic and be back to maintaining my normal weight. Like, it's not gonna work like that. And if you think so, there is gonna be some long-term side effects or long-term consequences for that decision.
It seems like we could almost name this podcast "It Comes Back to the Individual," because that's where we always end up as a solution to these big problems. But I think that's a good place to stop it. And for everybody out there, from every day to next Sunday, I'll say this: make today matter. It seems that we always come back to that. But great episode, and we will talk to you next time. See ya.